Watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. What's going on this week, dude?
Not a lot. Just chilling. We were talking about Ben Askren before. We're going to talk about Francis Ngannou now. Can't get much better.
Yeah, big weekend of cards, or a big card this past weekend, I should say. Lots to talk about with that. But first, let's talk about Mr. Ben Askren. They did the press conference a couple days ago with him and Jake Paul. I didn't watch the whole thing. I think I caught most of the good parts. Did you actually sit down and watch the whole thing, or did you just catch bits and pieces like me?
I just saw bits and pieces on like Twitter and Instagram. I am entertained, and you know me, I don't like to shit on these like kind of like circus things, because I think all of combat sports, even Francis Ngannou and Stipe Miocic, is at its core a little bit of a circus fight. So I don't shit on these things, but also I'm not gonna spend an hour. Like, I want the 20-second Instagram clip. That's all I need of this. And I liked what I saw. I'm gonna be honest. I enjoyed what I saw.
Yeah, I did too, and I think you could tell the diff. Like Ben Askren is a troll. He's always been a troll, right? But he's a professional troll, and I think you could really see this because Jake Paul tried so hard to get under Ben's skin with from him calling Jorge Masvidal, which is, dude, at this point, Masvidal is kind of getting lame. It's like, he's kind of going overboard with a lot of things. That's not even me being a Ben Askren mark, but, he's showing Ben Askren the video. He's talking all this shit, and, dude, Ben is just completely unfazed. Whenever they get to actually talking, Ben absolutely slaughters him. And I'm not going to say, like, Jake doesn't look nervous necessarily, but he looks just uncomfortable up there. And again, this is what Ben does. He's a professional with this. That's my take on it.
Well, dude, I think like in some ways, Jake Paul is a professional troll. Like, again, we've talked about it on here, and maybe this makes us sound old, but neither of us really entirely understand or know what Jake Paul does. But his environment is the internet. Like, that's where he thrives, is on the internet. However, he doesn't have all this experience that Ben Askren does of sitting up on a podium and like doing this like fight promotion stuff. So yeah, it was like, if you are one of those people who thinks, oh, this is Ben Askren representing MMA, which I'm not one of those people. I think this is just Ben Askren representing Ben Askren and nobody else. This was a win for him. Like, he looked way more confident. He spoke way more confidently. It seemed like Jake Paul was, like trying a little too hard. But again, like, I don't think you and I are really their target audience, right? It's the Jake Paul, Logan Paul fans that are tuning in, and maybe they fucking loved what they saw out of Jake Paul. I will say, though, this is, again, coming from my perspective, how old I am, but also coming from the perspective of just watching a lot of combat sports and face-offs and showdowns and trying to read body language. I have not seen, not since Andre Galvao did not respond to Gordon Ryan slapping him, have I seen a sadder response to somebody like being shoved in the face. Because if people haven't watched, I'm sure you can find the clips everywhere. They go to face off and they're like talking or whatever, and Ben just straight up puts his palm in Jake Paul's face and pushes him off, which, we've seen enough MMA and boxing stare downs. When something like that happens, it should be like, on site. Like, they need guys up there to separate them. But Jake Paul chose to the butt slap on Ben Askren, which is like one of the funnier, at least to me, I thought it was beautiful unintentional comedy. Like, this guy you're about to fight, like, does one of the more disrespectful things he can do by like palming your face and shoving it. And Jake Paul's response, he looked a little like intimidated, a little
he
afraid.
did.
Again,
He did.
not to like read too far into this because again, it's a circus show. But if I'm gonna do that, like one guy looked really confident and unafraid, and the other guy looked a little shaken. You know, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, that's what I took out of it. Yeah, very weird response, but yeah, I thought Ben looked completely comfortable up there, and Jake just looked a little bit, flustered and out of sorts, right? But that's what you get when you put a professional fighter in with a basically an amateur, right? I mean, Ben Askren is not Nate Robinson.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like, I don't know about you, and maybe you might have even more people asking you about it because you're a loud and proud Ben Askren fan. But I feel like I got a lot of people, just random people who only sometimes talk to me about fights, asking me about this fight. Like, I feel like I've given my opinion on it to like 10 or 12 different people at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question is, right, like, how much of a chance does this Jake Paul have, right? I think that's the biggest question I've had. I mean, people I think are interested just because they know him and they think of him as kind of like a tool, right? But it's like, how serious do we take him? And I think honestly, we don't know. Like, yeah, he's looked good against a YouTuber and a former NBA player, but now you're fighting an actual professional with the highest level combat sports experience. So we're gonna find out. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. Conventional wisdom says that Ben Askren is going to absolutely smoke this kid, but
But he's the underdog. He's the betting underdog.
is he really?
I just read it. I closed that window, but he's like plus 175 according to the article I just read.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, betting odds are not betting odds often correlate to who is actually going to win, but you got to remember betting odds are what they actually reflect is the public's perception of that fight. And I bet a lot more people think Jake Paul is the better fighter. Whether that's true or not, again, like you said, we'll see. I'm not going to shell out $50 for the pay-per-view. I can guarantee you that, but I am very interested to see what happens.
That's crazy. And Jake Paul, the betting favorite over a decorated combat sports athlete after knocking out Nate fucking Robinson. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we could have knocked out Nate Robinson that night. Flat.
I mean, dude, I don't want to spoil my analysis of this fight, as silly as that sounds, but like Ben Askren in how many professional MMA fights at the highest level was never finished outside of that one jumping knee from Masvidal. So it's like, why I can understand thinking Paul is going to like outpoint him or something, but people like confidently saying Ben Askren's going to get knocked out feels like how long Ben Askren was just a few months from fighting fucking Damian Maia. Not that Damian Maia is a huge striker, but like my point is Askren was at the absolute highest level and couldn't get finished. I don't know. We'll talk about it more in advance, but
Listen,
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills the way people are talking about this fight.
I will go to the grave saying that if Jorge Masvidal did not land that knee, Ben Askren was going to abuse that man for 3 rounds.
I mean, dude, look how Jorge Masvidal has lost throughout his career to guys that can grind on him, guys that can out wrestle. Look what, again, I think Kamaru Usman is a totally different animal than Ben Askren, but look what Kamaru Usman did to Jorge Masvidal. Like, I don't regret picking Askren to win that fight in the least.
No, me neither. Shame that it happened. God damn it. Really quick before we move on to the UFC, we're talking about trolls. And dude, Gordon Ryan, I've been following combat sports. I've been following jiu-jitsu, wrestling for pretty much my whole life now, it feels like, right? Since high school. I've never seen anything like Gordon Ryan. Like, Gordon Ryan is not only at the top of the sport, but he has distanced himself so far from the pack that it's like, it's unreal. So he fought Wagner Hocha this past weekend at Who's Number One. And Wagner's a little bit smaller, but Wagner is one of the best grapplers in the world at his weight class. He's fought just about everybody. And he's the only guy that has stepped up to take on Gordon Ryan. All these guys are not wanting to fight Gordon. And I will say that a lot, not a lot of this, but some of this is not Gordon Ryan's fault, but it's a product of Gordon Ryan getting so big, right? There's not a lot of money in grappling, and Gordon has ascended to this almost like Conor McGregor-esque figure. MMA, there's a lot of money, right? Grappling, there's not a lot of money. So when you're demanding all this money, it's probably not going to happen. So I think a lot of that has gone into why Gordon hasn't gotten the matches that he's wanted. But he literally calls his shot on the mat and finishes. And I cannot tell you how difficult that is. I mean, I can call my shot in a roll against a blue belt that I'm way better than, and it might not happen. This guy is doing it to the highest level black belts. If you didn't see it, he had a fucking envelope that said "Open Me." He gave it to the announcers. After he submits Wagner Rocha with a triangle, they open it on the broadcast, and boom, in it is a triangle with who's next. I mean, dude, I was blown away with that. I mean, give me your thoughts on Gordon Ryan really quick, and who do you think he should actually fight next?
I do think it's the calling the shot sets him apart. He also did this before his last match against Roberto Jimenez.
Yes.
He didn't do the envelope, but he did like an Instagram post right before it said, "I'm about to win this match by mounted armbar." And then he went out and nearly did it once and then tried it again and did it the second time against Roberto Jimenez. I do think it's important, not important. Maybe important is not the right word, but in assigning Gordon Ryan this kind of like mythical, like a better than everybody else status, it's important that at least for these matches that he is calling his shot, because whether it's his fault or whether it's nobody else wants to grapple him, whatever it may be, he is not facing elite level heavyweights, or guys in his weight class rather. Part of that might be that a lot of those guys only want to face him at like ADCCs. They don't want to like they don't want to deal with all the trash talk and then lose to him and basically have their reputation like thrown in the gutter. There's a bunch of reasons, but as long as he's not grappling against like other elite guys in his weight class, which he hasn't. I mean, his last 3 matches were against smaller guys, and the one before that, Kyle Bame, is not an elite guy at his level. But nonetheless, he is calling his shot and he's getting submissions. And I agree with you, like, even though he had some size, and I want to say they weighed in about 17 pounds difference.
17 pounds, yes.
Still, calling your shot on a guy the caliber of Wagner Rocha is pretty fucking impressive. As far as who he should grapple next, man, I would love to see either maybe a rematch with Buchecha in one. However, I don't think Buchecha is super keen on that. I think he probably wants to focus on MMA. He's been beefing with Lucas Barboza from Team Atos for quite a while. And, since the slap heard around the world, I'm adamant that Andre Galvao has kind of ruined Team Atos's reputation, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of those guys from Team Atos would not accept a slap to the face quite like Andre Galvao did. And I think a guy like Lucas Barboza, who has, I'm pretty sure, lost to Gordon Ryan, and I would expect him to lose to Gordon Ryan, if I'm being totally honest. But a guy like Lucas Barboza, that's a fight I want to see. Victor Hugo, who is doing big things in both the gi and the no gi, might be the kind of next best heavyweight contender. But I believe Gordon Ryan said Hugo had backed out of a match with him. So I don't know. I think Victor Hugo is probably the match that I most want to see for Gordon Ryan, but I don't know how likely that is. And Victor Hugo competes, I think, this weekend at a Third Coast grappling event. But
he does, and his first round matchup is against William Tackett, who is
another possible
monster.
Well, I'd like to see William Tackett grapple Gordon Ryan at like the 2022 ADCCs. I want to see William Tackett with another year of like black belt level elite competition under his belt, and then I think he is a guy that could be the next Gordon Ryan, albeit he's like super
19.
nice and Christian and stuff, so he's not going to be the next Gordon Ryan in that regards, but he's like a phenom, and getting bigger, like putting on actual weight. So
I want to see him face Kane and Duarte again. And the crazy thing is, Gordon beat Kane in IBJJF, right? So that's like That's like the
Yeah.
biggest one up on that rivalry. But I think Kanan is probably the second best pound for pound guy in the world. He's beaten literally everybody but Gordon. And again, it's got that Atos versus DDS, little rivalry going. That's the one I want to see.
And we could see this weekend at Third Coast Grappling, could see Kynan and Victor Hugo. I think they're on the opposite sides of the bracket, which I think for my bet, if that match happens, that's like there is no like worldwide reliable ranking system for submission grappling, but I think that sets up like who is the clear number 2 heavyweight no-gi grappler in the world.
Yeah, I mean, a lot going on in the jiu-jitsu world. Check it out.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some MMA. None bigger than the main event that happened this past weekend. We do have a new UFC heavyweight champion. Francis Ngannou gets it done in the most impressive fashion possible. I got to say, man, I think Francis checked off literally every question box we had. He defended a takedown, and he defended the takedown beautifully. Spun around to the back. He put on smart pressure. He wasn't gassed. He made it to the second round. He was effective in the second round. I mean, literally, I think every question I had going into this about Francis Ngannou, it was answered. Dude, super, super impressive performance from him.
Oh, I loved it. I think my biggest takeaway, and they talked a lot about his patience, and honestly, he was not always a super impatient fighter. I think he just was aggressive when the opportunity was there. I think he's like almost. I'm about to make a Francis Ngannou to Conor McGregor comparison if people want to flip their shit, but Francis Ngannou kind of realized that if you have this really, really amazing punching power, you don't need to throw really hard. So it's kind of like counterintuitive. And I think McGregor has that figured out to the T, where he understands he has really big punching power. But what you see is a guy who doesn't throw everything into every single shot because he knows he doesn't need to. He knows if he connects, he can still hurt his opponent. And I don't know if that was a product of Ngannou's training or just more time in the cage or what it was, but I liked that he realized like, oh, if I throw 70% instead of 130% or whatever, I'm still going to hurt Stipe. And that's what we saw right from the jump. Really impressive stuff.
Round 1 was a little bit weird for Stipe. He didn't really do anything. He went for the takedown. It failed. I don't know if he was just trying to wait Ngannou out and gas him out and then, start picking it up in the, second, third, and fourth round, kind of like the first fight. But the difference with the first fight was, like you said, Ngannou was throwing everything at 130%, right? He was putting everything in his punches, and he ended up gassing himself out, where in this fight, Ngannou was patient. He was using his leg kicks very nicely to chop Stipe down, so I don't think that strategy was going to necessarily work. Did you find it weird that Stipe was not really doing much of anything in the first round?
I guess maybe at the time, but I do think I agree with you. And Stipe put out this like long Instagram post that
I read it, yeah.
That basically alluded to what you're saying. So I agree that like his game plan was to tire out Francis Ngannou, right? Because I think he said like our strategy was working. He was winded by the second round, but I also agree with you that I don't know if that strategy was going to work because he was taking damage and Ngannou was for sure. Ngannou is always going to have worse cardio than Stipe Miocic, but I think Ngannou could have fought at that pace for at least another couple rounds.
Yeah, I didn't see Ngannou being winded at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second round, dude, that finishing sequence is it brutal. He hurts Stipe with a jab, gets him against the cage, dude. I don't know why people aren't talking about this more. That little inside uppercut that Ngannou threw that landed completely flush on Stipe. I don't know how the fuck Stipe took that shot, right? And then he backs Stipe up, and Stipe is able to land this beautiful counter straight right to Ngannou that almost looked like it wobbled Ngannou a little bit. But here's the difference with Ngannou now. He has the wherewithal to plant his feet and then throw that check left hook. I mean, that was a thing of beauty. If you watch his footwork there, the way he plants and gets every single ounce of his body behind that punch is absolutely beautiful. I mean, Stipe falls, the leg looked a little weird. There's almost shades of Gonzaga Crow Cop. And then, dude, it's just all over from there. Absolutely beautiful, violent sequence. And it's kind of like bittersweet, right? Like, in this fight, like, these guys are just both such gentlemen of the sport, such good guys. And it's really tough to root against either one, right? You feel gutted for Stipe, but you're also so happy for Ngannou after everything he's been through to get to this moment. Man, you really can't ask for much more in a big fight, and especially a heavyweight fight. Because I feel like a lot of times, heavyweight has always been like the glamour division of combat sports, right? And when there's a big, meaningful heavyweight fight like this, it feels bigger.
Yeah, tons of. I got the chills watching this fight.
Yeah.
It was super intense, super exciting. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad that not only has Ngannou had a chance to like have his story be heard, right? Going on Rogan and talking about that. But I also like that Rogan, like, basically during Ngannou's walkout, like, kind of summarized Francis Ngannou's story to set the scene to like, this is not just some humongous athletic freak. This is a guy who has like been through a lot in life to get where he's at right now. So yeah, I think Francis Ngannou is a guy who's really easy to root for. I do agree with you that like I didn't really want to see Stipe Miocic lose. I also didn't want to see Francis Ngannou lose.
Me too. Yeah.
So, but I'm happy with. I mean, Stipe went out on his shield. I don't think he was necessarily fighting a bad fight. I agree that maybe his strategy wouldn't have worked out, but it's not like he went out there and laid an egg. I think he did what he does, which is like he thought he had Ngannou hurt and just ran into the fire, and that obviously hurt him. But yeah, I'm happy for Ngannou, man. I've been a fan, and I'm even more of a fan now.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. Did you see the reaction video from his home country in Cameroon?
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Yeah, I believe ESPN MMA posted it. They have I don't know, whatever, like a watch party or whatever going on, and you can just see the sheer emotion of because if you listen to him talk, it's like people from his country, like, they're not supposed to do what he's doing, right? They're not supposed to escape or move on. Pretty much, that's how he summarized it. And he was constantly told growing up, with these aspirations that it's not going to happen, it can't happen. And dude, look at him now. He's the fucking heavyweight champion of the world. Just such a good guy. He's so just well. He's got like that, almost like that Anderson Silva, like that very like calm demeanor, but he's an absolute, just a savage and a killer. I can't gush enough about this. This felt like, honestly, one of the biggest heavyweight fights I've seen in a while, man. It felt huge. It was just a great rematch. I think it's one of the greatest rematches we've seen in a while. And now Francis Ngannou is the UFC heavyweight champion, and there's a lot to talk about. The big thing is what's next. Dude, if I can get this off my chest really quick before we go into too much detail on it, whoever's listening, reading on Twitter, whatever you want, if you actually think Jon Jones is afraid of any man, including Francis Ngannou, you're an idiot. Jon Jones is not afraid of any man. DC, who has this long storied rivalry with Jon Jones, don't think they like each other very much, said the exact same thing. Jon Jones is not afraid of any man. And listen, who honestly right now, Ben, who is the second biggest fighter in this sport currently on the active roster?
Jon Jones. Gotta be Jon Jones.
Jon Jones has been fighting for world titles since 2011. Where was Francis Ngannou in 2011? Where was Stipe in 2011? Right? Like, he won his world title in 2011. He has not had a fight without a 5-round world title since 2011. And you're going to tell me that it's some sort of crazy thing that Jon Jones is asking to be paid? In what world does this man not deserve to be compensated and paid for what he's done in this sport? There is none. Literally none.
Dude, if somebody says that Jon Jones is afraid of fighting Francis Ngannou and that's why he's asking for more money, I want to ask that person, how did Dana White's boots taste? Because you're licking them, right? Like, the only reason we're having this discussion is because Dana White and the UFC are so good at crafting this kind of narrative and expectation that if a fighter wants to negotiate for a big fight, that they're like dodging the fight for some reason, which I absolutely agree with you. For sure, Jon Jones is not dodging the fight. Jon Jones watched that fight on Saturday and was ready to call out and ask for more money for whoever won, because that's what he should do. Whether it was
But
Stipe or Francis, like, Jon Jones should fight them next, and Jon Jones should get paid out the fucking wazoo because that's a humongous fight.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Ben, but this
No.
was Jon Jones's. This is not a new narrative from Jon Jones. Jon
Yeah,
Jones has been asking for more money since he moved up, right? So this is not some sort of new thing where he
exactly.
saw Francis Ngannou win. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm afraid I need more money." Like this has been his narrative, whether Stipe won or Francis won. So stop with the bullshit. Jon Jones is not afraid of Francis Ngannou. I
Yeah.
think this might be the biggest fight in the sport right now. I think this fight rivals Conor Poirier 3. Tell me this, over under. If they build it right and they sign Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou for the UFC heavyweight title, over under 1.5 million buys.
Oh, real close to 1.5 for sure. I'm trying to think of how big recent McGregor fights have done.
Okay, so
Um,
maybe we'll do 1.3 because I want to say Conor
I
and
think
Dustin did.
over.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's this is like, this is what people tune in for, whether it's boxing or MMA. The biggest, baddest man on the planet, like, that's what people want to see, is the heavyweights deciding who the best guy is. And um, for sure that, Jon Jones makes the most sense by like a fucking mile. And especially if they do, like, remember what they did when McGregor fought Aldo the first time, the only time that they fought. If they do something similar, like an international press tour, fuck, go to Cameroon, have Jon Jones out there in Africa, like, go to France, have Jon Jones in Paris beefing up this fight with Francis Ngannou. Go to Albuquerque, have Francis Ngannou come to Albuquerque. Like, I want to see all that. If they really go all in on this fight, I agree with you. It's massive. And let me just say that, like, here's why the UFC should give Jon Jones a massive payday, like, upgrade for going up and challenging for the heavyweight belt. Because his other options would be fighting Jan Blachowicz, who I love, big Jan. I love the Polish power, obviously, but that's not doing anywhere. That's not even doing probably 800,000 pay-per-view buys, you know? Like, they're getting so much value added for Jon Jones to go up to heavyweight and fight Francis Ngannou that they need to pay him, and they need to pay him well.
I mean, the other two options for Ngannou, right? And we can look at these all side to side. I think is the Stipe trilogy. If Stipe did want to do this, or Derek Lewis. I mean, yeah, Stipe probably deserves. If Jon Jones wasn't there, I think the Stipe or the Ngannou trilogy could be a no brainer, right? But do you really want to have Jon Jones sit on the bench, or Derek Lewis, right? I don't think Steve, and we're going to see the numbers for this. I have no idea what they are right now, but I don't think this fight did a million buys. I don't think Francis versus Derek Lewis is going to do a million buys. Dude, literally it feels like a no-brainer. Unless Jon Jones is asking for some sort of astronomical amount, like $20 million, I don't see how you don't sit down right now, come to an agreement, pay this man, and sign this fight. Because this is the biggest fight probably in heavyweight history. This is arguably the biggest fight you could make in MMA, in the UFC currently. Pay the man what he's worth because he deserves
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, agreed with all that. I'm not at all excited about a Stipe trilogy either. Like, it's hard for me to see the fight going any differently. Honestly, like, no disrespect to Miocic, but I don't know what he can change about his strategy to win a third fight here. And I definitely think, also, what does Stipe have to prove at this point? Like, I don't think he's going to be super motivated to get the title back after holding it for so long. And yeah, Derek Lewis, like, maybe. I hope not. There's always a chance that it shakes out like their first fight, which would be a massive disappointment. So yeah, it definitely feels like a no-brainer. And I do think the UFC will make this Jon Jones
I do
Francis
too.
Ngannou fight. They're just going to be playing hardball for sure in the media. You're going to hear Dana White saying that Jon Jones doesn't want that fight when we all know he
He
does.
does.
That's just them playing hardball. But I do think ultimately the UFC does get these fights done more often than not, and I think it's going to happen.
I personally wouldn't mind seeing, and again, like I'm not saying Stipe should retire because of this performance, but like, what else does he have to prove, right? Like
Yeah.
he's the winningest heavyweight champion. He's probably the heavyweight GOAT. I don't think this loss changes anything about his standing with his legacy. If he did want to fight and he didn't get the trilogy, and they did do John versus Ngannou, I think Derek Lewis could be a fun fight for him. But at this point, like for Stipe to jump back in line, and again, like if they do Jon Jones versus Ngannou, like you're 38, 39 years old, and now you got to take the belt off Francis Ngannou or Jon Jones. Like, I don't know how Stipe, thinks too much of those prospects. We'll see, but I wouldn't mind seeing him right off into the sunset. You have any strong takes on what Stipe should do next?
Yeah, I'm never one to say it, somebody should retire, but I'm with you. Like, I would almost prefer to see him retire. Basically, because, like I said, I don't think an Ngannou fight goes any differently. Maybe I could be, if Jones, like Jones versus Stipe, especially if there's a belt on the line, I could be intrigued by that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd be fine with, I don't want to see Stipe fighting contenders or anything to get back to the belt. Like, that doesn't do it for me. And it shouldn't do it for him, honestly, because like you said, he has nothing left to prove.
Yeah, and it's not like Stipe's fallen off a cliff thing where like he needs to retire for his health. I think it's more like what else is there to prove, right? Like he's done everything, and at 38, 39 years old, there's really nothing left.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the co-main event. I gotta say, man, respect to Tyron Woodley. Uh, he was much criticized, and it was deserved for his last three performances. We don't have to rehash that. He loses, what, 25, 50, 75 straight minutes, right? Loses every round of every fight. And now he takes this fight against this hungry veteran, but also, I think Luque with this fight is finally broken out of prospect mode, and now he's firmly into the trenches of the welterweight upper echelon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Woodley comes out and absolutely goes for this fight. He comes out throwing bombs. He hurt Luque actually, right? But Tyron Woodley might win this fight against pretty much. I won't say pretty much anyone, but a lot of these welterweight contenders, except for Vicente Luque, because this fight, exactly how it played out, is where Vicente Luque thrives. He is extremely durable. His composure is out of this world. He's extremely hard to put away, and that's just the fight that Tyron got dragged into. And of course, Luque survived. But I gotta say, props and respect to Tyron Woodley for coming out and laying it on the line and going out, on his shield.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know he like lost first round knockout or whatever, but it was almost like as a Woodley
First round
fan,
Darce choke.
Yeah, Darce choke. Oh, which by the way, I gave a nod to Luque's front headlock Darce choke game last week. So, but yeah, as a Woodley fan, like it's weird to say I'm excited to see him like lose in the first round, but he went out on his shield. He tried throwing the right hand. He landed the right hand. Like he did the stuff that when he's exciting, it's what makes him exciting. So, I was as weird as it is to say I was happy to see the way he lost. Like I'm so much more happy with that than a 15-minute decision where he just backs himself into the fence.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he, laid it on the line. It didn't go his way. I think that's the last time we see Tyron Woodley in the UFC. That was the last fight on his deal. He's now lost 4 straight. He has never had a great relationship with the UFC brass. I don't think they're going to retain him. You think that's it for him, or do you think he's going to try his hand at like a Bellator or a PFL?
I bet he continues to fight. I don't. He's also a guy that I feel like has been open about mismanaging his money previously. So if that's the case, if he feels like he owes some taxes or something and he needs to pay off some bills or has an astronomical mortgage, I could see him fighting again. But yeah, honestly, I truly wouldn't be shocked if we see him chill the rest of this year and then sign with a PFL next year.
Yeah, I think PFL is probably a smarter way to go because if you're looking at Bellator, you're not beating Douglas Lima. Douglas
Yeah.
Lima is one of the, I think, 3 or 4 best welterweights in the world. And then if you look at the flip side for Vicente Luque, the only thing I didn't like about his performance was his call out. The Nate Diaz is such a throwaway call out at this point. Like,
And it was so
everybody.
polite too.
I know.
His actual call out was polite. It's like that's not going to get Nate up.
Listen, everybody in the know knows who Vicente Luque is. They know how good he is, but the casual market and the casual media has no idea who Vicente Luque is. Nate Diaz is not coming back to fight Vicente Luque or any of these other lesser-known savages. So it was kind of a wasted call out. But if you're looking at the welterweight division, I kind of like that. Michael Chiesa fight, I think, would be excellent. Michael Chiesa's looked really good. I think Chiesa is 1 win away from, entering into that title picture. And I think with this win, Luque is as well. I think Bilal Muhammad would be a ton of fun as well.
Ooh. Yeah, I was ready to say Chiesa, but also, yeah, I love a Bilal Muhammad Vicente Luque fight. But for sure, rankings wise, they haven't updated the rankings as we're recording this podcast, but they'll be probably right next to each other in the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, he should
Chiesa
jump
and
up
Luque.
to number 7, right?
Yeah, because that was Woodleys. So yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see them grapple. Luque is not a bad grappler at all.
Oh,
and
he's
Chiesa
great.
would try to do it with him. So
Yeah, I think that'd be a fun one. Moving down, Sean O'Malley defeats Thomas Almeida. Kind of a weird fight, but I think Almeida pushed O'Malley just enough to where we kind of, I won't say like it completely absolves him from his shenanigans from the Marlon Vera loss, but I think it kind of distanced himself from that. O'Malley looked pretty good. Kind of weird him trying to get the walk-offs. I mean, you got to finish your opponent, right? He would have looked like a complete jackass if Thomas Almeida came back and won that fight. And Almeida came back, and props to him, but the chin held up pretty damn well until the end when he got absolutely demolished. That finish was beautiful. But
yeah.
How impressed were you with Sean O'Malley, and where do you think he goes from here?
He kind of exceeded my expectations a little bit, or for sure quite a bit. I picked Almeida to win, so he exceeded a lot of my expectations. I do think, and maybe it's just a lot in my head, I do think he still reacts like big anytime somebody kicks his leg, which is like super problematic. And maybe I'm just like looking too far into it, but I felt like anytime Almeida touched his leg, there was like a change in body language from Sean O'Malley. So I think that is still a problem. I got a couple names at 135 that I think might work for Sean O'Malley. If they want to move him up the rankings, if they want to push him, I wouldn't mind a fight with Rafael Assunção, a longtime veteran, maybe probably for sure on the downside of his career, but still definitely very, very dangerous. Also, another fight that I had in mind, if they want to try to give O'Malley a much more winnable fight and continue to kind of build him up, what about Davey Grant coming off of, who's like, I think on like a 3 or 4 fight win streak out of nowhere and coming off of a pretty cool knockout, and is like kind of a sneaky, dangerous guy in that division.
That's interesting. I saw a lot of people calling out, and I think he actually said it himself, Dominick Cruz. Some people were calling Dominick Cruz. I know Dominick Cruz said that he'd like to fight Sean O'Malley. That could be a fun one. I want to say they're going to try to give him a name and someone with a number next to it. Another one, if you're looking at those rankings, could be, I actually don't think they'd shoot him up this high. I saw Marlon Moraes being tossed out. Moraes is coming off a couple losses, but dude, imagine Marlon Moraes kicking those legs. Sean O'Malley might not be able to take more than 1 or 2. I think the Assunção one is good because Assunção is ranked number 10 right now.
And it would test his grappling. I think Assunção would be the best grappler he's faced in his career.
Jimmy Rivera could be an option too, sitting at number 11. He's coming off a couple losses.
Yeah, I just don't know entirely what they want to do with him. I mean, this Almeida booking was kind of weird to begin with, so I don't entirely know what direction they want to go, or what direction O'Malley wants to go. Like, does he want to be shot up the rankings? Obviously, I guess to a degree if he wants to fight Dominick Cruz, but I'm still a Cruz versus Aldo or bust. That's the fight. It's got to happen.
Or Frankie Edgar.
Yeah.
Edgar, Aldo, either one of those.
Yeah.
All right, quickly moving down this card. I love the Miranda Maverick Jillian Robertson fight. I think we were both pretty high on it coming in, and it delivered. Maverick, I think, showed
Dude, she is a
ton in
Terminator.
this fight. She's a Terminator. Her cardio is excellent. She was in some bad spots in that second round to a great grappler in Jillian Robertson, and she put it together. She ended up taking Jillian down and kind of dominating on the ground in the third round. Definitely an interesting player at 125, a division that needs women in it.
Yeah, and I got to stop kind of sleeping on Miranda Maverick. I watched her a lot in Invicta, and I think she's physically developed quite a bit. She was always like pretty big and muscular, but always kind of slow. And I thought she kind of relied on her physicality a little bit too much, but she proved me wrong here. Not that she was, not that she didn't use her physicality here, but her grappling chops were good enough to stay out of getting choked against Jillian Robertson. And yeah, she looked way faster, way more powerful, way more durable. She is just an absolute fucking Terminator at 125. Like, I would like to see her against somebody like Antonina
Yeah,
Shevchenko.
I like
You
that.
know, I think Shevchenko might be booked with a fight right now, but somebody like that at 125, like maybe don't fast track her, but have her be fighting somebody with a number in front of their name within the years for sure.
I
Because she
agree.
is Terminator is like the only way I could describe her. She is fast, durable, and just fucking explosive.
Yeah, agreed. I was super impressed by her.
Yeah.
Opening the card, Jamie Malarkey defeats Kama Worthy with a beautiful KO, 46 seconds in. Anybody else on this undercard you want to give a shout to?
Yeah, I mean that's it. I watched the prelims, but nothing. It was kind of honestly the main event was fun, intense, and exciting, but this was not one of those nights where I went home just like buzzing, like oh everything was incredible. It just nothing really jumped off the page at me. I do think Omar Morales is a guy to keep our eye on. I've been sleeping on him a little bit because I think he's kind of reckless, but other than that, I had no problem with the Michael Olashechuk decision. I saw a bunch of people in the media scored that the other way, but I had no problem with that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I see a lot of decisions on these prelims, and that's probably why I went home not super pumped.
One thing of note, the US of A does not have a champion anymore. When's the last time that happened? That's kind of wild.
And do we have any? I guess Rose is fighting for a title soon.
So I was actually I should have wrote this down because I was going through this the other day. Let me see if I can pop it back up in my head. Yes, Rose is fighting for the title. Uh, Maybe Jon Jones is fighting for the title. Uh, both flyweight divisions, no. Bantamweight, no. Although, I mean, I'm pretty sure was it Aljamain Sterling? Was he born in the U.S. or was he actually born in Jamaica?
I'm pretty sure he's born in the U.S. Wait, he's a champion. Everybody's saying there's no. He's got to
Yeah, but
be.
he bills
He's
himself from Jamaica though.
Oh, he's probably not U.S. born then, because
Yeah.
that U.S. born stat I feel like is getting thrown around a lot.
Volkanovski and Ortega, so there's one. Lightweight Chandler has a shot.
Uh,
170 Masvidal has a shot. 185 no. 205 no because it's going to be Glover and Jan. Heavyweight we just said. I mean, women's
yeah.
bantamweight and featherweight no because I don't think anybody's beating Nunes. So yeah, it's kind of wild right now. The USA does not have a champ. I mean, they have some opportunities coming up, but
I
crazy
mean,
the guard.
to be fair, Aljamain Sterling went to is like as American as it gets because for purposes of MMA, culturally he can identify and be whatever he wants, but he wrestled here in call like he is the prototypical American fighter who was a collegiate wrestler in the United States. So, and he's like pure American swagger. So I'm counting him as American.
Yeah, count him as American. Same. All right. Bellator is back this weekend, and they are back with a bang. It's been too long, and again, we were talking about it. Like the next couple weeks, we're getting really like fully back into the swing of UFC, Bellator, PFL. A lot of cards going on. ONE FC is coming back. Main event: Patricio Pitbull taking on Emanuel Sanchez in a rematch. I think there is no doubt in my mind that Patricio Pitbull is, I would say, a top 3 featherweight in the world. I think he can go with any of the featherweights in the UFC, and that's including Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski, taking on Emanuel Sanchez for the right to face AJ McKee in the Featherweight Grand Prix finals. I'm jazzed up for this one. Not only should it be a great fight, but just the prospect of Pitbull finally getting to that McKee fight. Their first fight was pretty damn interesting, though. Emanuel Sanchez made it a fight, and I feel like he's being a little bit undersold here. What chances do you give Emanuel Sanchez to actually pull off this upset and spoil the McKee Pitbull fight?
I mean, it's for sure not nothing, considering, like you said, their first fight, Sanchez hurt Pitbull early in that fight. And he is like really offensively a dangerous fighter. My issue is that Sanchez is just a little too confident and willing to exchange. I think he's a little too confident in his own chin. We saw that. Sorry, there's a truck driving right by. There is, it was his last fight against Daniel Weichel. I felt like that was super, super exciting, but he's really, I'm going to move forward and exchange with you, and I'm going to win the battle of chins and punching power. And that's not to take anything away from Manny Sanchez's like technical ability, because he is a really good grappler. I think is a really good kind of overall MMA game. But I think when it comes down to like, all right, we're going to exchange and see who comes on top, I think more times than not, Pitbull wins that exchange, which we kind of saw in their first fight. Like, yes, Manny Sanchez hurt him early, but Pitbull did not go away. He continued to throw on offense. I also think Pitbull every once in a while will, go to a takedown here and there. I think that changes it. I actually think this fight is more in Pitbull's favor than it was when they fought the first time in 2018.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there. I think Pitbull is just so much better than. I mean, it seems like he gets better every fight. I mean, he looks more and more impressive.
I think his power is getting better, like just everything overall. He was always a pretty well-rounded, really scrappy guy, but I think maybe, yeah, I mean, that knockout of Pedro Carvalho, I'm thinking like knocking out Michael Chandler, I think everything is really coming together for him, and he's peaking, even with a really long career. I mean, he's 33, so he's basically in his athletic prime for an MMA fighter right now.
Dude, I think like honestly both Pitbull brothers, but like their personalities are like they're fun, right? They beef with everybody. They're like straight up like, I mean, dude, they're on the broadcast like. He did that thing with Showtime not too long ago, and I think it was actually like Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas were interviewing him. He's basically like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure he called like Michael Chandler like a pussy on broadcast and said like he wanted to actually kill him. And like the way they talk, they're very boisterous. They beef with everybody. Like they have such like fun personalities. And I think they're finally like starting to get that. Well, at least Patricio is starting to get that mainstream. Like, yeah, this guy is one of the best fighters in the world. And again, like if he wins this fight, which I think we both think he's going to do, the AJ McKee fight is going to be bananas. Honestly, one of the best fights in 2021.
Unreal. AJ McKee will talk trash too. He's not bad at it at all. He's going to have a perfect foil in Pitbull. Every time we talk about the Pitbull brothers being like good at trash talk and like beefing with everybody, I will never forget when they did that like Featherweight Grand Prix selection show. Do you remember where like they got to like pick their opponents, and Pitbull, because he was the champion, basically got to pick whoever he wanted, like his placement in the tournament bracket. And they had like Darion Caldwell and AJ McKee up there like begging, like, fight me, you're afraid of me. And Pitbull just pauses for a long time when it's his time to pick and just looks at Darion Caldwell and goes, "You are a loser." And then it's like, I'll fight, whatever. I'll fight Juan Archuleta or Pedro Carvalho next. Like, just like pure, yeah. They don't pull any punches, both in the fight and outside, which I appreciate. And yeah, I feel like Bellator is finally, like, they've been behind him, but their efforts are finally starting to pay off with more casual fans that maybe only rarely watch Bellator know who he is and at least know like, oh yeah, that little Brazilian guy is really fucking good.
Is really fucking good. Usman Nurmagomedov is in the Co-main events, definitely one to keep your eye on. The dude is an absolute beast, 11-0, taking on Mike Hamill. Not too familiar with him, but I mean, Usman should put on a show here.
I mean, Mike Hamill is a wrestler. Who did he fight last? Let me look this up. Did he fight
he fought Boric
Adam
last.
Boric. This is why I remember this, because I interviewed Boric when he told me about that he was actually fighting Mike Hamill on late notice. So he lost to Adam Boric split decision on like I want to say 7 or 8 days notice, because literally Boric was I had an interview with him on the phone and he broke that news to me. So Mike Hamill, wrestler from MMA Lab, took Boric all the way to a split decision. And I know he's a big underdog to Usman Nurmagomedov, but he might make it interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I think it's a good showcase for Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Also on this main card, Alejandro Lara versus Kana Watanabe should be good. Kana is undefeated. She is a pretty bright prospect for Bellator. Neiman Gracie, Jason Jackson on this main card, I really like. They also have Tyrell Fortune on this card. Roger Huerta's randomly on this card too. I haven't heard that name in a while, but I mean, they're coming back with a bang. This is honestly a really nice main card. They're on Showtime now, and I'm happy to see Bellator back.
Yeah. And honestly, Neiman Gracie against Jason Jackson might be one of my favorite fights of the weekend, if not my favorite fight. Jason Jackson is a guy who I feel like is not super well known, but should be. He like took Ed Ruth to a really close fight. Let me see here. Let me look at his record. Beat Benson Henderson and Jordan Main. He's a really good kickboxer. And obviously Neiman Gracie does what you would expect him to do with that name. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. Let's see. A couple quick things before we get out of here. UFC made a big signing. They signed Paddy Pimlet, the Cage Titans champion. Absolutely love that signing. I think Paddy, he was being rumored a couple years ago and it kind of fell through, I think by his own doing. But now he's signed to the UFC. I'm really excited about that. I think he can make some waves.
Yeah, I don't think he's like skill wise as good as McGregor or anything, but he kind of has that similar type of like European fan base where everybody in Europe knows him and they love him. And I'm excited to see the UFC do a show in like Liverpool or somewhere in England and really showcase him, because he's a showman, really exciting to watch. Has a super memorable look. Like, he doesn't look like a fighter, but everybody, that you see that haircut and we're talking about Paddy Pimlet, right? Like he has a lot of potential. And he is a very, very good fighter. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong and like be a championship level fighter, but for sure he's good enough to be in relevant fights and be pushed by the UFC.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a nice test in this first fight too. I'm really interested to see how they match him up. We kind of alluded to it earlier in the show. It's looking like July 10th is going to be Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 3. Hey man, props to Poirier. He wanted that fight. Yeah, he wanted that money. It looks like he's going to get it. I mean, give me your prediction on how these odds are going to shake out. Do you think Conor is going to be the favorite again, or do you think they're going to actually value Dustin Poirier's win and make him the favorite in this fight?
I bet, if I had to guess, I would bet that Poirier opens at like minus 180, maybe even minus 200, but then gets so much money will continue to come in on McGregor to make it like basically a pick'em at fight time.
Yeah, I would say it probably opens as a pick'em. That'd be crazy if Poirier was a minus 200 favorite. Because, like, Conor's one of those guys where, like, he can get knocked out, and then it's like they kind of still don't take it into consideration. It's still Conor McGregor, right?
He'll like convince you that, like, he's already, like, he's doing it now where he'll convince people that it was, like, just the leg kicks. Oh, I was focused on boxing. I wasn't prepared for the calf kicks. I still think that disregards the fact that Dustin Poirier fucking outboxed him without that. But yeah, McGregor is a guy who will convince you that he didn't actually lose, even though we all saw it with our own eyes.
Sure did. last one. I don't know if we officially talked about this, but it's been officially announced. Tony Ferguson taking on Beneil Dariush. That is going to be, I want to say, the co-main event to the Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira title fight. Absolutely love it. Big step up for Dariush and a big crossroads fight for Tony Ferguson, who's only fought studs, but he's lost. Man, Tony could be in for another one in this fight because Dariush has looked so freaking good lately.
Yeah. I will say this is why people like Tony Ferguson. Don't ever say the guy is not about that life, because he's fighting a guy that doesn't have a ton of fanfare behind him and is way on the come up and is super dangerous. Like, props to Ferguson for taking a guy like Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, I agree. It should be a fun one, man. Hey, here's an idea. We're doing all these big grappling shows, right? Can we get Khabib and GSP to grapple? I know we're never gonna get like that. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, obviously, like, whatever, they don't want to fight, but I'm sure Khabib and GSP both have some sort of, competitive edge to them still. Why can't they just grapple? Like, make a grappling event, do it for charity or something. Like, it's gonna bring a ton of eyes. Maybe there's just not enough money in it to get GSP and Khabib to agree to it, but I don't see why not.
I feel like GSP would actually do it because he seems like genuinely interested in learning jujitsu, like just jujitsu, not MMA grappling. I think, and right, he trains with Zahabi, obviously, but he's also trained with Danaher, all those guys. Like, I actually think GSP wouldn't have a massive price tag to do that. I don't know if Khabib is super interested in that, but I don't know. I don't think it's that far. Like, GSP is like, right? Didn't he go on like Gordon Ryan's show on Flow Grappling and whatnot? Like, he's jujitsu adjacent. So I wouldn't rule out GSP doing a submission grappling match.
I think these
at
guys
one
just
point.
have so much respect for each other. I feel like they still want to compete against each other, just not in MMA. Like, just do a grappling event. Like, do it for charity or do it for shits and giggles, right? But I think it would bring a lot of fans to it, and I think that it would give them both an opportunity to, obviously they're not going to fight, but the respect thing, they don't got to cut a lot of weight, and they can just go out and have fun and grapple. I think they should book it, but again, like, I don't know what organization is going to have the chops to book that match. Maybe like a Flow. I have no idea, honestly, but something I was mulling around in my head.
I mean, I'm sure Flow would love to do that, but I still don't even know if they have they're the biggest purveyor of grappling events in the world, I think, and they're still kind of, it's still it's still very much a niche sport, so who knows? But yeah, I mean, now that you say it, I truly think GSP would be open to doing something like that and wouldn't really be a diva about it, just because I think he truly enjoys martial arts and would actually really enjoy preparing for just a straight jujitsu match.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they both like genuinely want to compete
Mhm.
against each other just out of pure respect. Maybe old Chael P can get it done. Submission underground with some weird fucking
If they
5-minute rules that make no
Yeah,
sense.
I was about to say I would be fine with seeing it submission underground if they change their fucking rules. I don't the EBI. Hopefully we don't get too far off track. But if people have no idea what we're talking about right now, we're at the end of the show, so you can tune out. But EBI rules are like done in my mind. Like, I'm over EBI rules because you see
Really?
guys. Well, like, I guess Mason Fowler kind of proved me wrong last night because he got a submission in regulation. But I think Mason Fowler is a guy, like, he
Well,
beat
against
Craig
Craig Jones,
Jones
yeah, yeah.
twice, right? And those 5 minutes are so short, and there's just no incentive.
That's the
If you,
problem.
yeah, if you think you don't have as good of jujitsu as your opponent, then you're better off just like stalling during regulation to try your hand at overtime. I would much rather see I way prefer who's number one style events or Polaris where it's like submission only, with judges involved and they base that on aggression.
So the problem with submission underground is when you have two high level guys, 5 minutes is not nearly enough
Yeah.
time. The high
Yeah.
level, like
Not
if
even
you want to put
close.
like, okay, like Jessica I and Lima McFarland happened this weekend, 5 minutes, sure, two vets, whatever. But when you have two high level grapplers, 5 minutes is not nearly enough. I prefer ADC rule sets, honestly. That's my favorite. You got submission only for 10 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes is points. If you're on the feet and you pull guard, you get negative points, penalty points. That's my favorite rule set, but who knows? We got a little bit off topic, but
dude, that's all right. One of these days I'll bitch about Submission Underground and how great it could be, and every time I watch it, I just tune in and grumble because they put on some exciting matches, but just the way it's put together, the matches, the commentary, everything, it just annoys me.
Yeah, I agree. I do love CLP on the commentary, though. He's so bad that he's hilarious.
He needs somebody that like actually knows jiu-jitsu next to him, because his ability to describe what's going on is like
terrible.
Yeah, it's like crazy.
He butchers everybody's names. He doesn't know what's going on, but I love it.
Yeah,
it's so funny. All right, man. I think we covered everything. Guys, if you like the podcast, as always, please give us a follow. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We're all over. Enjoy the fights this weekend.
No escape, can you step to this? Face the pain.